Okay, good evening. We are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Phil Herman. I'm the superintendent of Hudson City Schools, and I want to welcome you to the Hudson Virtual Learning Program informational Zoom session. If you were looking for another Zoom session, you might want to tune out. That's not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about virtual learning tonight. It has been a busy week in Hudson City Schools as we shared the return to school plan. And I know that so many of you tuned into that on Monday evening or saw that presentation. And there's quite a bit of information there process. And so I'm appreciative that you're tuning in again to learn more about the Hudson Virtual Learning Program that we talked about as in that session on Monday. It is a challenging time for us as parents as we all try to make good for our children and their education. And so hopefully tonight we will be able to give you more information that will assist you in making that making those decisions that you have. There will be an opportunity to ask via the chat a little bit later. But Doreen Osmond, our assistant superintendent, will be presenting an overview of the virtual learning program, and then she'll be answering as we move through the evening. Doreen Osmond is our assistant superintendent, and 21 years of experience in education. She's been a teacher and a principal and a director of instruction and assistant superintendent currently in Hudson. She is an expert in curriculum and in teaching pedagogy. I learn from her every day, not only about good instruction for students, but to lead the educational organization with heart and with passion for serving students. And so it is a pleasure to work alongside with her and learn from her. And so I'm going to turn things over to Mrs. Osmond, and she'll be presenting this evening. And we'll go ahead and then answer questions once she's through presenting. So Mrs. Osmond, can you go ahead and unmute?
Can everyone see my screen? So one thing, being at home and virtual learning, some of our business men and women out there, this is how they conduct business every day. And I used to make fun of my brother-in-law and my sister, who are both in big businesses, work for big companies, and said, you know, how challenging can that really be? So living in this environment has taught me to eat my words. So Phil, thank you so much for the kind introduction. I want to thank you, Mr. Herman, Phil. I want to thank you for your leadership and your guidance, and for always challenging thinking as we have moved through really everything, but especially since March. It has been a pleasure and a privilege to work with you. I also want to thank our Board of Education, our Hudson Board of Education, for their constant support, for also letting us do and challenging our thinking and making sure that we have processes in place, making sure that we leave no stone unturned for the betterment of our students, and because they know that the impact that schools have on the life of a child. So thank you very much. I want to thank our parents and our students and our teachers and our staff members. We want to create this very conducive
small, like here interaction, like social interactions. There's like another like friend of Mark's, you know, like basically each boy, like no, we've not gotten anywhere.
What is going on?
There's other people except for like they have like one friend. Each kid has like one friend.
Hello. Kelly, can you hear me? All right. I'm going to let you all know a little bit about the structure tonight. So 25 to 35 minutes, I'm going to be presenting and telling you and giving you a glimpse of where, well, not a glimpse, a pretty detailed overview of what we are thinking about and what we're planning for Hudson virtual learning option. And then we'll have about 20 to 25 minutes at the end of my presentation, the information part of it. And you will be submitting questions through the chat room. There won't be any live interaction. We will put those questions on the chat room for two reasons, really. We can have a great recording. We'll save those questions if we don't get to it. We can lump them together to be able to continue to work on our FAQs, which are in progress right now, especially after Monday night's board meeting. And again, one thing, I may not have all of the answers tonight, but I assure you, we will continue to work on the details of the plan. There's things that are up in the air that I'll get to tonight, but if I don't have the answer, I'm not going to try to bluff my way through it. I will tell you, I don't know, but it is something that we're working on. I promise you that. As we were developing these plans, whether it's option 1 or option 2, everybody has a story to tell. Every student in our school has a unique learning style. And so that's really hard to plan when we're normal. And to try to plan for every student and with that student focus in mind became even more challenging when we are thinking of different ways to deliver our instruction, to continue to build relationships, and to build a healthy and positive learning environment in our schools. These are tough decisions, and you as parents have the toughest decision, what you want to have your child experience, either option 1 or an option 2. And hopefully we're giving you enough information, or we will have enough information that you can make this decision. The goals of tonight are to give a really quick overview of options. We're going to talk about what virtual learning is, what it's not. We're going to go a program overview, a day in the life of the student, and that's really why you're all on tonight. And then our next steps and about the commitment and moving forward. What is the purpose of Hudson virtual learning program? Why are we even offering this? Why are we doing this? Well, first of all, from our surveys and from listening and looking to other districts, because we research the heck out of our decisions also. We'll forge our own path, but we do level set ourselves too. From our surveys, from our teachers, from our parents, and from our students, and especially with turning on the news, we wanted to create a virtual learning option that was 100% at home. It was consistent every day. There was no worrying about the levels. It is a consistent and very linear and viable option for students. Every family has their reason. It could be because there's an illness at home. There could be pre-existing conditions. They're not comfortable. They're not comfortable sending their student to school. They need a more consistent option. Whatever the story is, whatever your reason, we wanted to create a virtual learning option that recognized and respected your need as a family. Learning options. There are 2 learning options that Phil presented to the board, and I talked a little bit about the schedules, what that looked like in the 2 different options. So option 1, just as a review, all in. That means our students are in all day, every day, practicing social distancing at 6 feet and making mitigation procedures. 50%, the next option within option 2, the next scenario is hybrid. 50% of our students are in school. The other 50% are at home. And students follow an every other day schedule with alternating Fridays. And then if we need to go back to that model, but better because we called it 2.0 and we've made a lot of improvements, students are at home and online following their schedule. So that consistency is there. So students are kind of getting into that routine. And we heard that over and over from parents and from students and from our staff. Where's the consistency? Even getting a schedule together was really hard. And we were all adapting. We were all at home working and learning, which was the challenge. And then just as a review, why we're here tonight and the focus of tonight is option 2, and that's 100% online commitment for a trimester, and we'll get to the dates and everything, or a semester. Again, striving for consistency, focusing on the health and wellness of our students. and their families. I want to go on and talk about what VLO, the virtual learning option, is and what it's not. So what it is being able to deliver instruction, the content standards, the Ohio content standards, what really is the basis of all of our courses and our classes, whether it be math, science, social studies, the arts, no matter what class it is, technology, those Ohio standards, those learning standards will be met. We want to partner with our students and our families, and we're trying to design the best learning experience within the virtual learning option. Are they going to be able to get together with friends virtually, potentially? Are they going to be able to touch base with their teacher, depending on the grade level and depending on if you're in middle school or high school? There's different ways. I just want to stress, we are not trying to duplicate what we do in schools every day. We can't. A virtual option is never going to replicate what we know as school, what our students, so many of our students know as school, but we are going to try to make it the best experience for your children. We are continuing to brainstorm ways. I just got off the phone with a teacher leader from the high school, and she was talking to me about, what about this idea that we can connect our virtual learning kids with our kids that are in school in a social way? It is amazing, the ideas and the brainstorms that come up. So we know that we have to somehow work on that piece of making sure students, even if they're home all the time, 100% for that trimester or semester, that they are connected and they feel connected. I'm going to talk a little bit also about why elementary, so kindergarten through 5th grade, look very different than middle school and high school. First of all, kindergarten through 5th grade has the same pacing, the same units of study. They follow it pretty, there's a pacing guide over the summer, and we are continuing to follow this. We are continuing to tighten up our pacing guide. So if they're learning about point of view or the narrative, it's happening at the same time across the grade level. That will be this year. So the kindergarten through 5th grade option for virtual learning is very different than the virtual option for middle school and high school. So we wanted to focus on the day in the life of a student, because that's really why we're here. What does this look like for my child? And these again are very difficult decisions. Hopefully we can give you information again that you can make those decisions. So students in grades K through 5 will be assigned a Hudson elementary teacher. That means that if they're the group of kindergartners or first graders, whatever the grade level, they'll be clustered like a virtual class, and they will have a teacher, an elementary teacher with a proper certification and all of that. One of our teachers will be running those virtual lessons. Students will meet virtually every day with their teacher. The focus is reading and writing and phonics and vocabulary, or what we call word work, mathematics. Science and social studies will be folded into that schedule, but the primary focus is reading and writing and mathematics, especially in grades K 1 and 2. That is the foundation. Also, they will be following the same pacing guide by the week as their option 1 peers. So all students are going to be learning that same content over that same week. We know that we cannot teach the same thing every day in a row. There is, within our pacing guides, we have some fluidity within the week, not necessarily by the day. So if you're talking to a friend that their child is in 3rd grade and they're learning multiplication, then your student might have already had multiple. Well, my student's ahead. It's pretty much within that week. So they are following the exact same schedule. So art, music, and phys ed. Art, music, and phys ed, our unified arts, and are a vital part of our students' life. We know that they need physical activity. We know that they thrive in the arts. It's an expression of who they are for many of our students and for many of our children. We are still developing that plan. It really depends on the scope of how many students and how many families are choosing virtual learning. to see if we can schedule art, music, and some physical education time. And what does that look like? Is it virtual, or is it synchronous, or is it asynchronous? Is it logging into Google Classroom and drawing down assignments and activities? That is still to be worked out. So one of the things from the survey from the spring, and the survey I'm referring to is the survey from the end of April and it closed May 4th. So sample schedule for kindergarten through 5th. This is just a sample. These schedules that I'm showing you really is a result of the survey, parents saying, how did we schedule? Can you give us more structure? It was very difficult. So I just kind of went with our school day. So there will be a 2-hour session in the morning. There'll be a morning meeting every morning. And then there'll be Zoom lessons, which will have an assignment and overview of our work, of the students' work. Assignments will be used, will be posted in Google Classroom. And in K2, the families specifically said there were a ton of emails. So we will be using Google Classroom really for option 1 and option 2. So Google Classroom, we will be having orientations and be working with families and students to get them all set up, and our teachers who are teaching virtually for Google Classroom. Then there will be direct instruction, and then there will be some time. There'll be time that the teacher works side by side in small group. It could be some independent work, independent reading, checking back in within that 2-hour period of time in the morning. This also includes folding in specialized instruction for students with disabilities, and that's including their related services. Free time and lunch, and then we go back to another 2-hour session, mirroring kind of what they did in the morning. It'll be Zoom sessions. We'll be working on reading and writing and word work and math, and then folding in that science and social studies. And again, this would be a time where students with disabilities have their related services and specialized instruction within that content area. So we'll get to, we're going to talk more in depth about students with disabilities and different needs. So I talked about the reason why we have something different in K5. We are following, it's pretty much a self-contained classroom. Teachers are teaching the same content. I know that fourth and 5th grade, they have teams, but it's the same content, it's the same pacing. So I want to talk a little bit about Apex. Apex will be the content platform. It is content-based. It is based on Ohio learning standards. They do have learning standards for other states. We have been using Apex for 10 years. And it is used as an option for our summer health. If any of your students have taken summer health because they want to study hall as a freshman because they're in orchestra or band or choir, or they're taking 2 languages, whatever the need is or the desire, we have a variety of students that take summer health. It's for a class. Students who can't fit a class into their schedules. We have several students that double up on sciences, and you double up on a science and double up on languages, meaning especially at the high school, taking 2 languages or 2 sciences or whatever. It could be 3 social studies. It doesn't matter. But so we offer, and they have a graduation requirement they have to get in. That is used also. A lot of our students that come from out of state may have different graduation requirements. What I'm trying to point out here is that we are used to Apex. And it has served us well. And we also use it for students that can't come to school for a variety of reasons, whether they're ill or they need something else at home. There's a broad range of courses which include AP, which is advanced placement approved by College Board, sanctioned by College Board, and there's intervention programming for students that might need to need some interventions on a certain skill or concept. Counselors, our school counselors will help schedule students into classes that reflect their current courses that they are scheduled to take. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we get a little bit into this. And then we always our potential college D1 and D2 athletes. We always want them to work with our school counselors for high school credit courses. We want to make sure NCAA they are aligned to NCAA. We have a few classes at the high school that are not NCAA approved, and those are communicated with our D1 and D2 athletes. So we just want to make sure, we want to put it out there. Also, one of the things that I wanted to also mention is, I know a lot of parents are saying, well, why can't we just offer what we're offering kindergarten through 5th grade? The high school team, and in consultation with the middle school too, Dr. Cockley, especially the high school, ran a 15 and 20% scheduling, about the 15, 20% based on the survey that was done in July, early July, of people that were interested or were undecided. To be able to run a schedule presented a lot of challenges that would have taken away the learning of all. So that's why we're offering our Apex courses. Also, our high school has over 150 classes that they offer during a school year. Apex will not match that, but we will try to align the best we can, especially in the core, we can absolutely align. So let's go focus on the day in the life of a middle school student. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what things are and what they're not. So students will use Apex. Again, it is self-directed. We will match Apex to the student's schedule to the best of our ability. Students will work independently on their coursework. It is an independent, self-paced module. If you think about, if you've taken any online classes that are strictly online, it is working through modules. Students will be assigned to a middle school team. Dr. Cockley felt it extremely important that students are connecting with a team of teachers in case they come back at the second semester. We have connections there. The middle school is based on team and community, and making a middle school experience smaller so their students are connected to 4 or 5 teachers within their team. So a middle school student in 6th grade will be assigned to a middle school team, 7th grade the same, and 8th grade the same. Teachers on the team will monitor progress and check in with students weekly. And those will be live sessions or Zoom sessions. It is not an intent for direct instruction. It could be to get some help because a team has has math, science, English language arts, and social studies on that team. We are still working on how we can deliver our electives, our Hudson electives, or some access to the content of our Hudson electives in art, music, and physical education. We're still working on it, and we're going to work on it and continue to work on it. So one of the things I want to talk again about schedules and sample schedules. This is just a Doreen Osmond sample schedule, and parents can do it what they want because it's self-directed. You can start classes at 10. I put a time period down on here. What we know about online learning with students in middle school and high school, it's about an hour per content area. Here I put an hour and a half for language arts. My mom is a former English teacher, and she would say that emphasis is well placed, but there's a lot of reading and writing, and that process takes longer. So in middle school, I just said about an hour and a half for language arts. It could be less, it could be more. And an hour is about average, 45 minutes to an hour. If your student is spending more than that, that would be time to email your person at the middle school and say, we're struggling a little bit here. And then lunch and free time, and then Apex social studies. The order is on you. It's up to you. It's up to your student. It really makes no difference to us. It is totally flexible. Again, self-paced. It allows for flexibility in families too. I am a household of 2 working parents. And it is difficult to make sure that your children are taken care of, your students are doing what they need to be doing. So there is some flexibility in how you set up this. It's total flexibility, not some, of how you set up your schedule for the day. The Apex courses, these are posted on the website. I will show you after I'm done with the high school, and they mirror our schedule. And so you can see English 6, 7, 8, Math 6, 7, 8. We do have Algebra 1 and Honors Geometry, and you can see it is for high school transcripted credit as it is now. science 6, 7, and 8, and then contemporary world history, middle school world history, and US history most closely aligned to our social studies courses at the middle school. In Ohio, you have a middle school band of standards, and we can teach them in different orders. Sometimes we have taught different life science and physical science in different order, but it is covering, we are aligning it to the best of our ability. We are working on that transition plan and the content plan, so there's no child that is behind. Apex does offer electives. So as we continue to figure out our own electives with art, music, and phys ed, we had college career preparation, art appreciation, and then 3D animation. And we do have a art animation class that we will offer as electives for our middle school students. We'll move to high school. Very similar setup. High schools don't have the teams. They don't have the 4 teachers that are a community. So again, we're going to use Apex as our base. Again, it's self-paced. In the high school, each student will be assigned a teacher, a person that they can do their check-ins in with every week. Those Zoom meetings will be required. It'll be part of the attendance documentation. Our math lab, we have math lab and writing lab all day. It's staffed by a Hudson teacher. Math and writing lab will be available by appointment or by a sign up genius. We're working those details out. So if your student needs help with writing or in a concept in math, we have a Hudson certified teacher that they can drop in, schedule their appointment, drop in and get that help over Zoom, not face to face. Over Zoom and provide that support. We're really excited about that part of it. And again, at Apex, we are offering electives, but we are still in the process of determining how we can best have all students access those electives. And more information will be coming for these classes, and it'll depend on the scale of the students enrolled in virtual learning. So this is a different kind of schedule. I just put hours. High school, again, English language arts is top. And then we have math, science, and then free time, Apex social studies, and students need an elective. We would need to make sure we're watching for eligibility for sports and extracurriculars because students in middle school and high school will have access to all sports, extracurriculars, after school activities. Some districts are not doing that, but we felt it important, an important way that a potential or a pathway that parents or students can be involved and stay connected to our schools. On our website, this is where the courses are for Apex for middle school and high school. High school has many courses. So you go to For Families, and then there's a scroll down and it says Apex course listings, and then it has a document viewer. I am not going to navigate there right now, but that is online. We are continuing. It's posted online. We are in the process of linking every course description to those courses. So if you want more information, hopefully that'll be done by tomorrow. It was an idea I thought of at 10 o'clock today. And so it's been a project that my wonderful admin has been working on. So hopefully that'll be done by the end of the day tomorrow, if not Friday morning. But that'll help, it'll provide an opportunity for even more informed decisions. Special education and related services. So all students with disabilities, 504 plans, will have access to those services and those accommodations. So case managers will be assigned and to all students in virtual learning like they are in everyday learning and what we know in option 1. Personalized learning plans will be developed based on the individual student and his or her specialized instruction. And those elementary students will follow a general education schedule, access to the gen ed curriculum, access to gen ed peers in a virtual environment, of course, and then specialized service and related services will be scheduled within that school day. Middle school and high school students, again, are self-paced, and their related services also, it should have repeated here, specialized service instruction and related services will also be scheduled. They'll have a case manager, students will have a case manager. The IEP team is still intact. And those needs will be prioritized, just like we were prioritizing in your IEP, but we're working within the confines of the IEP and then developing learning plans in this different kind of environment. Specialized instruction, again, assigned a case manager and or an intervention specialist, and to receive specialized instruction. I guess I want to make sure everybody understands we want to meet the needs of our students with disabilities. We want to meet all students, but having a student with a disability at home, we need something different, and that's why they have IEPs. Gifted education. Working with our gifted department, and looking at what can happen in a virtual setting. So there are different tiers. So if you're a parent that has a gifted student that has services, so tier 1 services are a cognitive identification, or a cognitive and a reading identification, and it's the enriched language arts. There will be at least one Zoom session a week with those tier 1 students in grades 3, 4, and 5. Tier 2 and 3 for grades 3, 4, and 5 will have differentiated activities and assignments. In middle school, math acceleration and placement will still happen. And enriched language arts for grades 6 through 8 is not available right now, unless it depends on the scale for enriched language arts. So basically, Nairi Wilkerson, our gifted coordinator, has been talking to parents that when you're signing up for VLO, you're really opting out of gifted services, because we're offering it in a different setting. It's different than students with disabilities. It's something that we are working on, though, but I do not want to overpromise and underdeliver. I want to talk a little bit about Unified Arts, World Languages, electives, and extracurriculars. We're going to continue to work on the logistics of art, music, and physical education and other electives. This is especially true. Apex can't match some of these courses, some of the electives. So we have some work to do. World language is one of them. That conversation exchange is huge. So we are trying to work on other options for these specialized courses. I also want to say the specialized courses at the high school, we can't replicate, we can't duplicate, and they're really not for a virtual learning environment. Those specialized courses include H2BE, New Dimensions, Service Learning. So those courses are not available for our high school, and it pains me to say that, but it's not possible to do that. More virtual learning information. All students in this option are still enrolled in Hudson City Schools. That's why we want them to participate in extracurriculars and so on and so forth. Grades will count, attendance counts, high school credit counts, everything counts at the high school for a GPA. Elementary and middle school will have report cards. Scheduled Zoom sessions are mandatory, and they do count as part of attendance. The code of conduct applies to all students enrolled in virtual learning. What the consequences of that conduct is, I'm not quite sure, but we will figure it out. But hopefully we won't even have to worry about that. College Credit Plus classes at the local college campuses are still the ones that are held at Kent State or at the University of Akron or another university are still applicable, and they will follow the university guidelines. So just because you're opting into option 2, virtual learning, doesn't necessarily, you're not opting out of your College Credit Plus courses that are being offered that your student is already signed up for. And then the pace in the middle school and high school course content will be aligned to the greatest extent as possible. We have several of the courses already paced out. So in Algebra 1, we know where we are at the semester. In geometry, we know where we are at the semester. In English 9, we know where we are at the semester. So some of our core classes, we already know where the courses are at the semester, because we do have at the high school and middle school, and really everywhere, we have common exams, common assessments. When I was talking to one of our teacher leaders at the high school, we do offer College Credit Plus courses taught through Hiram, but by our teachers. They have extra credentials and expertise. And we will be contacting Hiram to see if Hiram has an online learning option for the students in our College Credit Plus courses that are taught in the high school. Again, our school counselors will be key to talking about this. So more VLO information. Technology. Students in grades K through 5 will be issued a Chromebook. Grades and students in grades 6 through 12 will have iPads. So our high schoolers in grades 10, 11, and 12, and our students in grade 6 don't have their new iPads yet. We will be sending out information that you will have an iPad. We'll also be sending out information how you get your Chromebook. Student supplies, especially in grade 5, there's a ton of math manipulatives. There are resources that go right with our reading and writing curriculum. So we envision you having a supply pickup day where you get your Chromebook, or the student gets their Chromebook and they get their supplies. And if you are purchasing your typical supplies, I definitely would suggest your notebooks and your pens and pencils and things like that. But most of your work, especially in 6 through 12, will be done online. And even in K5, it'll be turned in through Google Classroom. So to reduce the amount of paper exchanges and parents having to copy and all this other stuff, we're not gonna do that. As much of paperless as we possibly can. All right, registration. We need to have parents and families complete the registration no later than August 7th. And you say, why August 7th? We have to plan. We have schedules in place. We have to even out our classes because we are getting prepared for that hybrid model. So that is the deadline. Students this is a big question. When does the semester end? When does it start? And when does the trimester end and start? So I put those dates out there. First semester and second semester, and those are the commitment timelines that you are signing up for, I should say. Attendance, again, attendance is taken, it's monitored, and your commitment, and then movement between options 1 and 2 will not be permitted after August 7th, except if you are coming into the school. Obviously, if you're moving here and you don't have your housing contract, of course, we're going to work with you. But for all students that are currently enrolled, that August 7th deadline holds true. And now, Phil. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. Continue to submit your questions into the Hudson Ready at Hudson K12 at hudson.k12.oh.us. Reading through the questions, I incorporated a lot of the virtual learning questions that you were asking. I wanted to make sure that we were covering them. I will continue to look at them tonight for the next session tomorrow, but it is pretty much the same information. It will be the same information. We are using those questions. If you're like, I have written in a question, we are using those questions to create our FAQs. So please be patient with us in our responses if you have written them in, but we are trying to get to them. So if you would like to put your question into the chat room, and then Phil or Kelly or Lisa, if I don't have my chat open, I will unshare my screen. I can see, well, whew. So I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to help me manage the chat room.
Okay, Doreen. Okay, just a minute here.
I'm choking on my water.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so there's a comment here. There are so many things that you don't know yet. However, we're supposed to know what we want to do. And we understand that. We're going to continue to provide updates to the questions on the frequently asked questions form. And we are continuing to, based on the information that is coming to us, pin down answers to those questions, and we'll continue to provide those to you over the course of the next week. There will be some components that are dependent upon how many students enroll into the virtual learning program. And so there are a few pieces that won't be decided until after we know how many students are in. But what Doreen presented tonight was what we know that we are going to do, and it will continue to be enhanced from there. What about those in half-day kindergarten?
They will have a half-day schedule. So you'll have a morning, we are still working that out, but we envision either a morning or an afternoon.
Doreen, how many hours of screen time required per 2 to 4?
For elementary, Phil?
Grades 2 to 4, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, grades 2 to 4. Yes, it would be between 2 and 3 hours a day. It would be on and off. It would be on and off. That 2-hour block isn't all online. It would be an assignment, and then you're reading or you're responding, and then you would join back into a Zoom session, or there would be break rooms that you would go to for silent reading or whatever the assignment is.
Thank you.
The next question is, when will responses to the FAQs start to be posted, and where can people find those?
So we are developing the FAQs fast and furiously. We are hoping to see some FAQs posted by Friday or by Monday. I hate to overpromise and underdeliver, but we will. We are trying as hard as we can, and they will be continuously developed.
Doreen, will the PowerPoint be available to families? Well, so will this PowerPoint be available to families, and how can people access that?
Yes, I will probably, I can post it tomorrow morning.
Doreen,
I am recording this session also. We are streaming live on YouTube, but I am recording it, and we will, it might be tomorrow's because of the beginning of this meeting, but we will be posting it also so families can access it.
Doreen, there are a couple questions about half-day kindergarten. I know you spoke briefly about that. One additional question is, how many hours a day will be mandatory for online half-day kindergarten?
We need to work that out, but I would guide it to about 2 hours. We'll be using Google Classroom. So your child may be watching a lesson, and then their Zoom time would be interacting with the content of the lesson. And a lesson, when I say they're watching a lesson, is for kindergarten, it is about 6 to 8 minutes.
Doreen, we have another question about starting kindergarten. If a family is choosing to do virtual, if my son is supposed to start kindergarten, if we do virtual, will he be in a group with only other kindergartners, or will it be mixed? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And it depends on the scope. So it could be kindergarten, it could be K1. It just depends on how many people are in there, but it would not be a kindergartner and a 5th grader. I promise that.
So that's based on families responding in terms of who
Yes.
wants the virtual learning option.
Correct. Yep.
Doreen, there's a question about options for foreign language for 8th graders.
Yep.
Will there be?
Yes, there will be. We'll mirror it to what we're offering at the high school, because middle school, 8th grade, we start world language, and it is for high school credit. So it would be available to our 8th graders. And with, we don't know which languages, we know we need to seek a different option. And that could be Rosetta Stone. There are different options out there. It doesn't replace your teacher, though, I know.
Doreen, the next question is for K-5 students. Is there a set schedule every day? Was the 9 to 3 set, or is there flexibility within that schedule for K-5 students?
So once we have the number, then we can assign a teacher. The teacher can start to plan and start to communicate with that class. So there will be a schedule. I know that somebody emailed into the Hudson Ready email it sounded so strict. There is some flexibility within that time, but it will be mirroring the office. It will mirror, at least at the elementary, the school day that we currently have. But more details will come. You're not sitting there. They're not sitting there for 2 hours, have an hour. It's not that regimented.
Doreen, what is the teacher-student ratio for fifth graders in a virtual class? But I'm assuming people might want to know what the teacher-student ratio is for all grade levels.
So in K-5, it's around 30. We know that in a virtual setting, or we've researched in a virtual setting, it's around 30. But if we have 31 first graders that sign up for virtual learning, we won't have 2 classes. We will not have 2 classes. So anyways, well, it's around 30. And then in the middle school and high school, it's going to depend, just like it depends on scheduling your class right now. So
Doreen, what happens at the end of the trimester if we choose to send our student back to face-to-face school? What class do they enter at that time?
So that's why it's so important to try to mirror the classes that they're in right now. So your student, our school counselors are not back yet. So you know what your students signed up for in their classes, especially at the middle school. They know their 8th grade selection, and in high school they signed up for those classes. So you need a certain number of classes in the high school. So you're going to look at Apex and start to talk to your child if that is your option, and go from there. And start to look at what would mirror, but the counselor is going to be a key person in that facilitation of choosing the class.
Doreen, can you just remind families when they can switch between options, either the trimester or the semester?
They can switch at that time.
So for K-5, they can switch at the trimester?
They can, and then 6 through 12, they can switch at the semester. The dates are in there. Or you can look on our website, the calendar is on the website too.
And Doreen, what happens at the end of the trimester if they choose to send a student back to face-to-face? What class would a student enter?
We would look at the schedule, and that's why we put courses up there that mirrored our current classes, especially the year-long classes. So the electives are semester classes. Our electives at the high school are semester classes, but English, well, English at the 12th grade level is different. So if they're an AP, so if they're an 11th grader and they're taking AP Lit, I think it is, and they're an AP Lit in Apex, they would jump back into Gina Vonville's class.
There's a question about the levels. So the hybrid will only be invoked if there is a code red, correct?
I'm going to toss that to Mr. Herman.
Sure. So we're using those color coding systems as our general guidelines, but that is not the only case in which hybrid could be invoked. First of all, we know that over the course of the coming year, guidelines could change. There could be more specific guidelines that are local that could be developed, or we could have some cases in Hudson, and we could be consulting with Summit County Public Health, and where we could be in yellow or orange, but that we move to something more restrictive. So there are other scenarios, but we're using those color coding systems as the general guide. But there are other factors that could also influence the need to move between the various learning models.
Kelly, there was a question about special education. How do we fit in those related? I saw something. Did you see it at all?
I haven't gotten down that far yet, but I can, if that's the question, I can certainly.
Yeah. How does that all? How are we going to fit all that in? If this, and again, the schedule was just a sample. It's a model. So Kelly, do you want to talk a little bit about specialized services?
Sure. So it will certainly, as Doreen had said previously, depend on the size and the scope, the number of students that we're talking about, whether someone is assigned to all virtual students to provide their related services, for example, speech or occupational therapy, or if they are, or if it will be something where the staff member happens to be in the district and serves a class or a student one period, and then at this time there's a scheduled time with a student to then provide those services remotely. So it could happen either of those ways, but what you do need to understand is that it will be scheduled. You will know when it's going to be every week, because the staff members are going to have set schedules, and they will be providing those services remotely. And part of that remote learning plan that Doreen mentioned that we're going to do with families, we're going to also talk about related services. So potentially a student previously received their speech services, for example, in a small group. We're learning that with remote learning, it's harder to have maybe the same number of kids in a small group to maintain attention, for example. So those kind of things are going to be discussed with families, and those changes would be made if maybe it's in a smaller group, 1 or 2 students or whatever. But we can, the services will be provided at a set time that you will receive, so you know when your student is going to be receiving that.
Doreen,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kelly, are you finished?
Go ahead.
Doreen, there's a question about, can you go over gifted services again? There's a question about why are the gifted students being punished and not being given the required services?
So there's a few things. So if you've attended any of our gifted meetings, gifted services in Ohio are a little strange, not the services, but the law, House Bill 282, which has been in effect for years and years and years. We are going by the gifted operating standards also set forth by the Ohio Department of Education. So gifted in Ohio, we have to identify students that are gifted, but we don't have to serve students. So that's what I said. It was a little weird. So we are trying our best. Hopefully we can make some improvements on that when we know the scope and the number of students, and so much depends on that. I want to equate it to at our high school, students sign up for a class, and if we don't have enough students, we cancel the class and we put them in something else. So we need to know, we need to have a scope. We don't mean to, our intention is not to punish any child. That is not the intention, but there are decisions and there's choices that we have to make that are really, really hard to do. So again, that's the baseline. We're hoping that is an area that we can absolutely improve upon. We know that we have some work to do.
Doreen, this next question relates to changing models prior to the start of school on September 2nd, which is the official start of all students, I believe. So the questions are this: if we initially choose and register a virtual learning option before August 7th, is it possible to change our decision to switch back to regular all-in education option before the school year starts on September 2nd, if things get better, to take advantage of the Hudson Schools teachers? And then there's the reverse of that. If we initially choose physical regular all-in option, is it possible to change our decision to virtual learning before regular all-in starts on September 2nd if things get worse?
This is the hard part. It is. We are trying to make the best plans. And when I say this is up in the air and specials are up in the air, if we don't have a deadline to plan for all students, it's going to impact everyone. And that is really hard for me to say, especially we have been living with uncertainty since March. So these are not easy decisions, but that August 7th is a really, it's a hard deadline.
Maureen, there's a question about, will the remote teachers be teaching from home or teaching from school facilities? It says it's specific to K-5, but if you could respond to that.
We will work with our teachers. They will have expectations. They will have learning expectations. They'll still be fully evaluated. So where they teach, it doesn't really matter. So that will be worked out with our teachers. Most likely they're going to be teaching from home. We're trying to reduce contact. We're trying to, people that don't have to be in the building, don't have to be in the building.
Doreen, the next question: I have 2 young elementary students and I'm concerned about them both being live on synchronous learning at once. How much live time will there be?
So in that morning session, I had put out that as a sample, that 2-hour block of time. Live time would most likely be about anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes. And again, that was just a suggestion. You could have a larger chunk of, it was just something to illustrate a schedule at home.
Doreen, will intervention specialists be Hudson teachers?
Yes.
Is it possible to give the online option to everyone?
It is, this option 2 is open to anyone, unless I'm misunderstanding the question.
Again, how many students will a teacher have during the synchronous teaching times? I think that was answered previously. Is there a plan for the preschoolers?
Our preschool, and Kelly, I should just let you jump in.
Okay, so our preschool program is, we have an integrated preschool program and it's specific for students with disabilities. So we're required to have services for them. We do have typical peers that have been a part of our preschool and are an important part of the preschool, but we're not required to have preschool just for typical peers. So so we are going to have our in-person preschool. We had to limit the number of peers based on the guidance from the governor's office. And if this pertains to a preschool student with a disability, we will be providing services remotely for them if they choose option 2. So if that's the question, yes, and you can certainly reach out to me and we can talk specifically about that, but not for all preschool children.
Maureen, there's a question about how will classes with labs work?
There is a lab section on Apex. It's not as robust as being in school. There may be some extra materials. So once we have that course selection, like bio is a lab class. We won't ask you to dissect frogs at home. That would be gross. Anyways, we would be working with our teachers, our science department, and then through Apex. We have had students that have taken AP Bio and gotten a 5 using Apex, and we have worked through those lab issues. The cool thing about the iPads, there are a lot of apps that we're exploring to make available, so that would complement, potentially that would complement Apex.
There's a question, did you mention there is in-school distancing of 6 feet or is it just 3 feet? This is a deciding factor for our family. So in the all-in model, where all students are back, we cannot do 6 feet distancing, which is the importance of those other mitigating strategies and the importance of wearing masks to make sure that we're following the hand washing protocols, the sanitizing protocols. And so that is 3 feet when all students are in. If we move to the hybrid and that's students alternating 50% capacity, then we go to 6 feet distancing throughout the schools.
So I'm going to piggyback on that because I can watch some of this. It said 6 feet was the state mandate. Do you want to talk about that, Phil?
Sure. I mean, the guidelines that came from the Ohio Department of Health said that there should be 6 foot social distancing where possible in schools. And the governor was pretty clear that he understood that that's not possible in all scenarios. And Summit County Public Health, in reviewing our plans and talking with them, they said that it's not possible in all scenarios. And so they wanted to see a continuum in the event, a continuum of mitigating strategies and layers of interventions or mitigating strategies within the school when reviewing plans. And then also the ability to move to 6 foot social distancing should the virus become more prevalent.
This is a question, I don't know if I answered it. The virtual teachers are Hudson teachers. They're hired by Hudson City Schools. They'll be evaluated by Hudson City Schools, that by administrators, follow all the guidelines. They're required to teach the curriculum. So they're ours.
Doreen, how does testing work for third grade?
Yeah, so that is a hot topic amongst curriculum directors across the state right now. We are still required to identify students that are not on track. So we will be doing that with our virtual students also. State testing as it stands today at 8:04. I want to date everything, I think. What it stands for, 8:04 on July 29th, is there's still state testing. But there are options of how to do that virtually. There are some programs that will lock down a computer that the state is exploring. So that's why I think they're just a little bit slow once we know that. But right now, plan on all that wonderful state testing. And we know I don't know what College Board's doing. I know that College Board had the virtual testing this spring. I sat at home while my child did it, 45 minutes. I have no idea what College Board's going to do.
Doreen, when talking about unified arts, is it a question of if or just how those will be provided to K-5 students?
I would love to say it's if and how. So we are really hoping, especially in K-5, we are hoping that we can program some type of elective art, music, and phys ed. Our teachers this spring did an amazing job incorporating those subjects, and that was just kind of a brain break. So we know that's really important. It's a priority. So we hope so. We're pretty sure that we're going to be able to do that.
Doreen, there's a question, how will kindergarten students be incorporated back into the physical school if they only do virtual for the first trimester? But I'm sure that could apply to maybe any of the K-5. You responded earlier about middle school and high school, but how will they be incorporated back?
It does kind of depend on the scope. We do have average class sizes in a K-1 situation, a 2-3 situation, and a 4-5 situation. So hopefully to integrate them back into a regular classroom, the in-person classroom, whatever in-person looks like, wherever we are on that option 1 spectrum.
And then are K-5 virtual learning option teachers dedicated to virtual students, or are the teachers shared within session classes?
We intend right now, our intention is that the classroom teachers would be dedicated teachers. That might be different for unified arts though. So that's where that is going to be worked out.
And it might be different for special education teachers, again,
Yes.
depending on the numbers. But
And related service people, depending on the numbers. So we have a pretty solid framework. We know that the core is going to be taught. We still don't know about art, music, phys ed, and we don't know about world language, but we are working on those things.
Doreen,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, Phil. For kindergarten, can we go to full day after first trimester? When do we pay for full day in this case?
Right now, there's a waiting list for full day kindergarten. That would be that's on an individual basis. I'm not really, so we would pay for half the year. So if you're right now scheduled for half day kindergarten and you want to jump back into full day, it'll depend on if there's a spot for you, a spot for students.
Is there an IT and support person available for families choosing this option?
Yes, there is.
Doreen, can students in the gifted program rejoin second semester?
Yes.
Can you reshare the commitment dates?
Yes, let me look at my notes. The commitment date to sign up for virtual online option 2 is August 7th. The first semester for grades 6 through 12 ends January 14th. So we will be giving more information out. We don't know what the situation is going to be with where we are with the virus. So that recommitment form, we are taking it semester by semester or trimester by trimester by trimester. So when you're committing as the 6 through 12 parent until January 14th, or you're committing as an elementary K-5 parent until November 24th.
For seniors
Or
that have,
RJ, what? I'm sorry.
next question is for seniors that have required classes that aren't offered by Apex, how can we know before 8/7 or August 7th how you will address this?
In that case, if you're a senior and graduating, I would reach out to your school counselor. If a senior and email them, they are checking email periodically. You can call me also. I can help you through some of those courses. Just because it's a class, is it counted as an English class? Because you need there's certain credits that you need 4 credits of English, 4 credits of math. So is there another math class that would replace the class that you're in? It's all about credits, not necessarily about the actual class, if that makes sense.
And we will find a way to make sure that if a
Yes.
senior still needs required credits, but wants to participate in a virtual learning option, that they are able to do that in order to achieve their
Yes,
credits.
we will make sure we will find a way that they will graduate. They will meet their graduation credits.
Doreen, will we have info about band or orchestra prior to the start for those of us that renting or returning instruments?
No. Well, you will have prior to the start of the school year. Yes, because everything is based on the number of students coming in.
What about ASL or what about AP Computer Science?
We're working through those I talked about specialty classes. We will be working through those issues. We don't know yet specifically about that, but we are looking at world languages.
10th grade science labs, how will those work?
Again, we will be working through Apex. Apex does have somewhat of a lab component. So we will match it as best as possible. Again, we've had students over the last 10 years that have taken the sciences, AP Bio, but we just had a student take AP Bio this past year and have a 5 on her test. So.
Can students in the gifted program rejoin second semester?
Yes.
It appears there are 3 elements to option 1 where option 2 is all virtual. Can you clarify? I can clarify that. So option 1 are students who are choosing to return to Hudson City Schools in person, and that in person can transition between all in, hybrid, and fully remote, depending upon the status of the virus and how we need to respond as a school district. And so we expect that students will transition when they return to Hudson City Schools, that we could spend some time in all in with all students back at the same time. We could spend some time in a 50-50 hybrid, or we could spend some time in remote learning. What we're talking about here tonight is the virtual learning option, where families are committing for their child to enter into virtual learning option separate from what is happening in the in-person in the schools. And participate in that for either the semester or the trimester, or at a minimum, or the entire year.
Correct. So again, I encourage you, if your question was not answered today, we will save the chat, but the best thing to do to make sure that we're capturing your concerns or your questions, please utilize the email. Again, we're using your questions to compile our FAQs. I know these are really difficult times. They are. Is this situation what I would wish for our students here in Hudson or my own children? Absolutely not. It isn't. But hopefully we are really working hard. I know that might seem trite to some of you that are really anxious and angry, but we will continue to work hard. We'll continue to refine and to develop the plan. And I promise you we will do our best. We'll roll up our sleeves. We want the best experience for students. Phil talked about me being in education for over 30 years now. It's like a blink of the eye. I went into this business to make a difference in the life of a student so they can thrive and be positive citizens. I don't want to be standing here talking about a virtual learning option, but we have to provide this option based on the needs of our families and our students. Do I wish our kids could be in school? Do I wish I could close my eyes and the virus would be gone and we can be back to normal every single day? But we know that's not going to happen. So we're going to continue to listen to our parents, listen to our students. I was emailing back and forth with a senior talking about New D, and it breaks our hearts. But these two options are made with the student in mind. And again, everybody has a story to tell, and I respect everyone's story, and I respect that you're angry. And we're working hard. And we will continue to work hard, and we will continue to listen and do our best.
Hey, Doreen, we have so many questions in here. Let's try to go till 8:30 and continuing to answer some more of these questions. We'll try not to read everyone in order where they've already been covered. Can you talk about career programs at all?
Absolutely. Actually, I was on a call with Maureen Schreiner, who is our unit principal at the high school, and she and she's mostly been meeting with 6 district compact principals or assistant principals, and we have every intention to get information out early next week. But our career kids, whether they're choosing virtual or in option 1 or option 2, will come to class, will come to school for their career programs. Mr. Herman, I didn't even get a chance to tell you that. And it will follow every day. They will be there every day. Like we host Auto Tech. If you know the middle school, that it's a large building. We have anywhere between 6 and 12 students. Distancing in the bays could absolutely happen over a hood of a car and wheels and stuff. So, and with our other career programs, our 6 district partners, our 5 other districts have assured us that distancing would be followed also. And we'll get more into detail in that information about, is it 3 feet, is it 6 feet? But our intention, because so many of our career programs are tied to industry standards and industry credentials, that we need to make sure they log their hours.
If our child's normally in enriched language arts in the middle school, will they need to retest to get back in the following year?
No. No.
Can my student try out and participate in show choir?
We don't know that yet. That falls into the arts discussion.
And then how about the
I want
support?
to go back to that. We don't even know how show choir and that's going to work out, because we're working with Summit County Public Health. We're working with our teachers. We're working with our music association. There's different strategies, and we're still, that guidance changes a lot.
And then how about the support for children with English as a second language? I assume in the virtual.
So that is a service, much like students with disabilities and specialized instruction. We will have a schedule for their sessions. If they're new, then their home language survey dictates where they are on a service level, a service model. So we'll be working with families who have English language as a second language. I will add that for my presentation tomorrow.
So there's some questions about the August 7th deadline. Why August 7th? And given the given the fluidity and uncertainty of the pandemic, that seems unreasonable or short period of time. We do understand that there's a short period of time to make decisions. We also, with over 4,700 students, have to build master schedules utilizing the staff that we have in order to be able to prepare to deliver remote education or the virtual learning option, as well as a series of 3 different schedules internally, in-person schedules, or I guess on the 2 of them are in person and the 1 is remote. But those schedules have to work synchronously with one another depending upon the status of the virus. And so those schedules have to be built based upon the number of students that we have in the various options. And so that's why we're asking for the commitment so that we can best prepare a schedule to serve your children in a virtual learning option, or if you choose to be in person, to better serve them there, and do so between August 7th and August 31st. We have frameworks of schedules, but once we begin to actually put the students into those places, we need to make sure that we have the staff appropriately there and prepared to be able to serve them.
I saw a question pop up. Are these substitute teachers for Ohio, not Ohio, for Hudson's virtual learning option? No, that is not our intention. We know that the parents that will choose virtual learning, that means reducing the kids that are in school, or whether they're in or hybrid or remote learning 2.0. Those are the distinctions we will be able to most likely open up teachers. So when Phil was just talking about master schedules, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Kelly, how will Hudson intervention specialists adequately provide services if the curriculum is different in middle school and high school?
I assume that's relative to Apex being online, and how, so the Apex, as Doreen mentioned, is based on the standards for the grade level or for a grade level band. And so it's content that our teachers are also teaching. Our own teachers are also teaching in the classroom. So they will be familiar with the content that the students are working on. And when they have those check-ins at the middle school or high school, or if a student needs assistance, for example, at the high school where they're want to go to the writing lab or the math lab, again, it's all related to content that our teachers are familiar with and are teaching. They might not be teaching that concept at the exact same time as when it falls within Apex, but that can be aligned too. We can certainly provide that information to families if they want to align the modules within Apex with what is being taught that within the curriculum. But and then our intervention specialists, again, certainly are familiar with the content standards and with the child's IEP, and can certainly address those in whatever content is being presented at that time through Apex.
Here's a question. I'm sorry, Mr. Harmon, go ahead.
Can students do remote learning from any location or state, i.e. can we travel while attending school? Go ahead, Doreen.
No.
I suppose they could.
Where's your residence? Where do you still live in Hudson?
Yeah, right. So a student, you're right. I mean, a student has to be a resident of Hudson, but if there were going to be travels, as long as they were able to log on, they could participate wherever they are.
Absolutely. Many families did that this spring.
Will all the students in Apex groups be from Hudson, or will they be from other communities too?
They'll be from Hudson only.
Doreen, what platform will be used? So the question was Blackboard, Brightspace, Google Classroom. So can you just talk a little bit more about that? What platform is going to be used?
For kindergarten through 5th grade, it will be Google Classroom. And in Apex, students actually do their work within the Apex platform. They log on, they do their work, they submit their assignment. And a teacher can see the activity, the teacher monitoring it can see activity, how many hours are logged in or how much time is logged in, and like a keystroke, and there's different ways to monitor progress, which will be part of that check-in time.
Doreen, do teachers teach live, or is it just simply posting materials like in the spring?
It'll be a combination of the two, because it depends it depends. So I'm assuming it's grade K through 5 because that's the only ones. It'll be a combination of the two. just like we're working together. And when I said that teachers and students would have that weekly pacing guide, so if a student, we really want students during their virtual learning option, when they're learning from home, to be able to interact with or learn or hear about the content first, and then when the teacher is live, to maximize that time with the student, so that interaction, the conversation exchanges, we want the teachers and students to be interacting together. We don't want a student to be passive listening to the actual lesson, but when they are with their teacher in that live setting. So it will be a combination of watching a lesson, and it could be a live lesson, it could be a mid workshop teaching point that's live, but students may get that, like I said, for kindergarten, but we work in a workshop model, so that mini lesson, guided practice, independent work, teacher conferring. So we're trying to replicate that in that K-5 virtual learning option.
Can you talk more about how exams will be conducted and grading? And is it the same as the hybrid model?
No, the exams and assessments will be done online through Apex. It'll be
How about at the elementary?
Oh, at the elementary, they'll be done online. We don't have a ton of tests. A lot of the assessments, because we'll be using Google Classroom and they will have Chromebooks, sometimes a Google form will be created for assessment. We can lock down the kiosk, the Chromebook. Even remotely, we have GoGuardian at the K-5. We'll use our tools to have as assessments. We're also working with Dibbles, and we talked to Stephanie, who's one of the designers of Dibbles, and what are the appropriate pieces and parts of the Dibbles, which is a K-5 or really a K-3 thing. DRAs, looking at the diagnostic assessments, is iReady appropriate? We are, that's for all students, it's not just virtual learning. We have Front, oh my gosh, what do we use? I'm gonna say it's FrontGate, but it's not. We use Forefront for math, and they gave us the pieces and parts that would be appropriate if we had to assess online. We already have that together, no matter where we are. So our students in virtual and K-5 would still have those kinds of diagnostics. So teachers, the virtual teacher, can design instruction that best meets the student, that differentiation.
Doreen, when will high school counselors be available to help a student who chooses VLO to pick courses to make sure they align with what they may have already picked and to meet the yearly requirements and/or graduation requirements? So essentially, when will the high school counselors be available for students?
We'll get that posted by Monday. Availability. We need to talk to our counselors. What are the schedules? How do they want to handle that time that parents and students will need with them?
Doreen, what does the Apex content look like? Videos, presentations, live? Can you expound a little bit, please?
It's a little bit, it's not live. It is not live. It is, there's an introduction. In some of the classes, especially the ones that have been updated, there are links to different lessons, but it is, so if you take social studies, if we're looking at world history, it could be reading a selection on World War I, and then they would answer questions, do a variety of activities. There could be some short answer responses. Then they take like a chapter assessment, and then they would take a unit assessment.
Doreen, can you talk about what grade levels will have Chromebooks, what grade levels will have iPads? So essentially the technology piece.
Yes. So in kindergarten through 5th grade, students who choose virtual learning option, option 2, but even in option 1, all of our students in K-5 will have a Chromebook assigned to them. That was not true for kindergarten through 2nd grade. In the past, we would have shared supplies in the classroom. So we have worked hard to reassign clean Chromebooks for kindergarten through 1st grade, and then 3 through 5 had Chromebooks, but they kept them at school. They will come home. K2, the intention, it just depends what model we're in. But if you choose virtual learning option, like I don't know if I mentioned it, but you'll get a Chromebook And you'll get some supplies that are crucial to especially Bridges math.
Dream, my son will be in 5th grade with advanced math in 7th grade. How will that work?
Will you read that again, Bill?
A son who's in 5th grade who's scheduled for advanced math 7th grade. How would something like that work?
So advanced math in 7th grade is Algebra 1. We would put the student in an Algebra 1 class.
But they're in 5th grade with the.
With 7th grade?
Yeah,
Oh.
they're in 5th grade currently.
So if they choose virtual learning option, then they would have be programmed with a 7th grade class.
Is there anywhere to see Apex examples of content like videos or presentations or samples of Apex?
I can do that research. And if there are, I'll post it. We'll post it on this Apex page on the website.
Will the virtual learning students within each of the grades have interaction with each other via Zoom?
In virtual learning? During their check-ins, Kelly?
And say it just says, will the virtual learning students within each of the grades, so the VLO students, have any interaction with each other via Zoom?
I'm not sure. Ideally, especially at the middle school, that could happen because they have that team support time, teachers do, and there's some planning time that could have that happen. That they could meet in a group. Sometimes they would meet independently, sometimes they would meet in a group.
So there are some questions here about why don't we just stream classes all the time and allow students who are staying home to in those classes from the virtual learning option. And we those as that is possibility. And you probably saw in the hybrid model, we will be trying to stream our classes, but teaching a streamed class for some students that are at home and some that are session is a challenging situation for any educator, and it really changes the way by which you teach. And so we are hoping that our students will be able to be in, and that we will not need to be streaming all of our classes all the time throughout the year. We wanted to make sure that we're providing a virtual learning option for families that say we don't want to be in school, and we certainly respect that and want to support them throughout this entire process with really rich content, and as well as contact with teachers and supports within the school district. At the same time, we don't want to commit all students to being in classes all the time throughout the entire year that are being streamed live. And that's a challenging decision for us as we looked at all the models and took all students into consideration about how we would deliver that.
I see one here, Kelly. I think this is really important. How do you get a student tested for a learning disability? Period. I think doesn't matter. I guess it doesn't even. It does. For this, it doesn't matter where we are.
Correct. Well, if you are concerned about your child and want to further that process of eligibility, you would reach out to the school psychologist in the building, whatever grade level your child is in, and the school psychologist will walk you through that process. And there are obviously deadlines and requirements, but we can do all of that virtually, including the assessment if we need to. If there are parts that we can't do virtually, we certainly would work with the family to set that up, because it would depend on if they had to come in individually and, outside of school hours or whatever the family was comfortable with. But we would work with you to develop a plan to do an assessment. A lot of things can happen virtually. We were able to do a lot over the spring. So certainly reach out to the building's school psychologist to start that process.
So again, I want to thank so many parents for tuning in this evening. We know that you have many questions, and you've prompted great questions here that we will continue to strive to get some of those that are schedule dependent in terms of the number of students that are enrolled. We'll try to clarify that where there cannot be an answer necessarily until students are enrolled, but many of the others we will be able to answer in the coming days, and we'll continue to post information and send information out to those of you who are interested and try to have more of those questions answered for you by August 7th. Doreen, thank you for your efforts tonight in presenting and for answering so many questions. Kelly Kempf, our Director of Pupil Services, thank you for answering questions tonight as well. And Lisa Hunt, our Director of Human Resources, thank you for helping to facilitate. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.